When my daughter-in-law Jessica stood up at that restaurant table, pointed at my worn cardigan, and announced loud enough for half the dining room to hear, "We can't take you anywhere, me. You look like you just came from a thrift store." I watched 3 pairs of eyes turn toward me, some filled with pity, others with embarrassment, a few with barely concealed agreement. My son Michael looked down at his plate. My grandchildren shifted uncomfortably, and my daughter Sarah actually nodded, as if Jessica had finally said what everyone was thinking. They laughed, not all of them, but enough. Nervous laughter that cut deeper than any insult could. I sat there in my $15 cardigan and my comfortable old slacks, feeling the weight of their judgment settle over my shoulders like a heavy blanket. But nobody laughed 30 minutes later when Vincent, the restaurant manager, approached our table with the reservation book and said, "Mrs. Morrison, I wasn't aware you'd be dining with us this evening. Had I known the owner was coming, I would have prepared your usual table in the private room." The silence that followed was so complete. I could hear the soft jazz playing through the speakers 2 rooms away. My name is Me Morrison, and I'm 72 years old. This is the story of how my family spent 2 years treating me like a burden they had to tolerate, never knowing that their expensive dinners, their luxury vacations, and their comfortable lives were all built on a foundation I'd laid decades ago. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one with the most power. And this is the story of how one family dinner changed everything. Let me take you back to where this all started, 3 years before that moment. Back when I still believed that loving your family meant accepting anything they did, no matter how much it hurt. I've been a widow for 7 years now. My husband Robert passed away after 43 years of marriage, a good marriage full of hard work, quiet evenings, and the kind of partnership you build one day at a time. We weren't wealthy, or so everyone thought. Robert worked as a civil engineer, and I'd worked various jobs over the years: secretary, bookkeeper, office manager. We lived modestly in our small 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. We drove older cars, we clipped coupons, and watched our spending. What our children didn't know was that Robert and I had been very, very good with money, and we'd been even better at making investments. In the 1980s, when everyone else was spending their extra money on bigger houses and fancier cars, Robert and I were buying small commercial properties. A little strip mall here, an office building there, nothing flashy. We kept our day jobs and managed these properties quietly, carefully. By the time Robert passed away, we owned 7 commercial properties throughout the city, including a small restaurant building in the downtown area that we'd purchased for almost nothing in 1987 and had leased to various tenants over the years. I never talked about money. My mother raised me to believe that was vulgar, that true wealth was something you kept private. After Robert died, I kept managing our properties with the same quiet efficiency. The income from the commercial leases paid me more in a month than most people earned in 6, but I maintained the same modest lifestyle Robert and I had always lived. Why? Because I wanted to see who my children really were. I wanted to know if they loved me for me, not for what I could give them. Looking back now, I realize that was both the wisest and most painful decision I ever made. I have 2 children. Michael, 51, is my oldest. He's a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company, does well for himself, drives a nice BMW. He married Jessica 8 years ago. His second wife after his first marriage ended quietly when the kids were teenagers. Jessica is 43, works in marketing, always dressed like she just stepped out of a magazine. They have a beautiful home in the suburbs, the kind with a 3-car garage and a landscaping service. Then there's Sarah, my daughter, 47. She's a real estate agent married to David, who manages a car dealership. They also live well, not quite at Michael and Jessica's level, but comfortable. They have 2 children still at home, both in high school. Before Robert died, family dinners were warm, genuine. My children visited because they wanted to, not because they felt obligated. But something shifted after the funeral. Maybe they looked at my small house and my simple clothes and decided I was just a simple widow living on a modest pension. Maybe they thought that without Robert's steady presence, I'd become someone who needed managing, like a child. It started small, little comments, "Mom, are you sure you're managing okay financially? We worry about you in this old house. Me, have you thought about selling? This place must be expensive to maintain. You know, Mother, there are some very nice senior living communities. You'd have people your own age around. You wouldn't be so alone." I'd smile and change the subject, assure them I was fine, and I was fine, more than fine. But they'd already decided on a narrative, and nothing I said seemed to change it. Then, about 3 years ago, the tone shifted from concern to something else. Something that felt uncomfortably like condescension. The first real wound. It was a Sunday afternoon in October. I remember because the leaves were just starting to turn, and I'd spent the morning raking my small yard. I was wearing my gardening clothes, old jeans with a patch on the knee, one of Robert's flannel shirts that I'd kept, my worn sneakers. I'd just come inside to make some tea when Sarah's car pulled into the driveway. She had someone with her. I could see through the window, a well-dressed woman about Sarah's age carrying a leather portfolio. I met them at the door, still in my gardening clothes, and Sarah's expression flickered with something I couldn't quite name. Embarrassment. "Disappointment, Mom," she said, her voice bright but strained. "This is Patricia Hendricks. She's a colleague of mine. Patricia, this is my mother, me." Patricia extended her hand, her eyes doing a quick sweep of my appearance, my house, the worn furniture visible through the doorway. Her smile was professional but distant. "Sarah's told me so much about you," Patricia said. "Patricia specializes in estate sales and senior transitions," Sarah said, walking into my house without waiting for an invitation. "I thought it might be helpful for you two to chat." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Sarah, I didn't know you were bringing company. I would have—" "Oh, don't worry about how you look, Mom," Sarah interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "Patricia understands. She works with seniors all the time. She knows how hard it can be to maintain appearances when you're living on a fixed income." I stood there, still holding the door, while this stranger walked through my home making notes in her portfolio. Sarah followed her, pointing out things. "As you can see, the furniture is quite dated. Most of it would probably go to donation. The house itself is in decent shape, but it needs updating. We're thinking something in the $320,000 range, probably less once people see inside. My house, the house Robert and I had bought 44 years ago, the house where I'd raised my children, where every room held memories. She was pricing it like a used car. "Sarah," I said quietly, "I haven't said I want to sell." "I know, Mom," she said, her voice taking on that patient tone you'd use with a confused child. "But we need to be realistic. You're 70 at this point, and maintaining a house alone is expensive. The property taxes alone must be eating up your budget. We're just trying to help you plan ahead." 70. She said it like it was 90, like I was already 1 foot in the grave. Patricia went through the house making notes, suggesting furniture removal companies, discussing what to do with all this clutter, by which she meant my books, my photographs, Robert's collections, the accumulated treasures of a 40-year marriage. After they left, I sat in my kitchen and cried for the first time since Robert's funeral. Not because I was afraid of losing my house. I could buy 10 houses like this without blinking, but because my daughter had looked at me and seen someone so diminished, so incapable, that she'd brought a stranger into my home to dismantle my life without even asking if that's what I wanted. I should have told them. Then I should have sat my children down and explained everything, but I didn't. Instead, I decided to watch a little longer, to see where this road would lead. Over the next year, the comments became more frequent. Family gatherings changed from celebrations into performances where I felt increasingly like a prop. The elderly mother who needed to be accommodated, humored, occasionally corrected, at Michael and Jessica's house for Thanksgiving, Jessica actually made me a separate plate because I know older people have sensitive stomachs. She'd pureed some of the vegetables and cut my turkey into small pieces like I was a toddler. I watched my grandchildren stare at my plate with confusion and a bit of horror. "Jessica," I said gently, "I can eat regular food just fine." "Oh, I know you think you can," she replied, patting my hand. "But at your age, we have to be careful." My mother had so much trouble with digestion in her 70s. "I'm just trying to prevent any uncomfortable situations." Michael said nothing. My son, who I'd raised to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, just refilled his wine glass and changed the subject. "At Christmas, they gave me gift cards, just gift cards. Target, Walmart, the grocery store. We thought this would be more practical," Sarah explained. "This way, you can buy what you actually need instead of us guessing." I thought of the years I'd spent carefully selecting gifts for them. The way I'd listened all year to their casual mentions of things they wanted, then surprised them with the perfect present. I'd given Michael a first edition of his favorite childhood book last year, tracked it down through 3 different rare book dealers. I'd given Sarah a piece of jewelry that had belonged to my mother, an emerald brooch she'd admired since she was a little girl. And they'd given me gift cards, practical, convenient, impersonal, but the worst moment came in March at my 71st birthday dinner. They'd suggested we all go out to celebrate my birthday, and I'd agreed. They chose the Meridian, a upscale restaurant downtown. I knew the place, of course. I'd owned the building it was housed in for 33 years. The restaurant had changed hands several times over the decades, but the current tenant, a chef named Vincent Russo, had been there for 6 years and had turned it into one of the city's finest dining establishments. I dressed nicely for the dinner. A simple navy dress, comfortable shoes, a cardigan in case the restaurant was cold. Nothing fancy, but neat and appropriate. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw my family was already seated at a large table. Michael and Jessica, Sarah and David, my 4 grandchildren ranging in age from 16 to 24. They all looked up as I approached, and I watched Jessica lean over to whisper something to Sarah. Both of them looked at my outfit. Sarah's eyes flickered with something like disappointment. "Hi, Mom," Michael said, standing to pull out my chair. "Happy birthday." "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, settling into my seat. "This place is lovely." "Yes, well, Jessica wanted to make sure we picked somewhere nice for your birthday," Michael said, "even though it's a bit of a stretch for our budget right now." There it was, the subtle reminder that they were spending money on me, sacrificing for me, treating me to something I presumably couldn't afford myself. The dinner started pleasantly enough. We ordered appetizers, made small talk. My granddaughter Emma told me about her college classes. My grandson Tyler showed me pictures from a recent hiking trip. These moments, these genuine connections with my grandchildren, were what I lived for. Then the entrees came, and Jessica made a show of looking at the prices. "Oh, me, did you want to order the salmon? It's $1.48. Maybe the chicken might be more economical." I looked at her, this woman my son had married, and smiled. "I can afford the salmon, Jessica." "Of course you can," she said quickly, too quickly. "I just meant, for our budget. Since we're treating." "Actually," Sarah interjected, "speaking of budgets, David and I wanted to talk to you about something, Mom." She glanced around the table, and I realized this had been planned. This birthday dinner wasn't just a celebration, it was an ambush. "We've all been talking," Sarah continued, "and we're concerned. You're living alone in that house, and it's not getting any easier to manage. The expenses must be adding up. We think it's time to seriously consider selling." I set down my fork carefully. "We've discussed this before, Sarah. I'm not ready to sell." "But that's just it, Mom," Michael said, leaning forward. "We're not sure you're thinking clearly about this. The house needs work. The roof is probably due for replacement soon. The HVAC system is 20 years old. Those are big expenses. I can handle my own expenses," I said quietly. "Can you?" Jessica's voice cut through. "Me, we're not trying to be harsh, but we're worried." You wear the same clothes all the time. You never buy yourself anything nice. You're clearly struggling, and you're too proud to ask for help. I looked down at my cardigan, a perfectly good cardigan that I'd bought because it was comfortable and warm. Since when did the cost of clothing determine someone's worth? We want to help you, Sarah said, reaching across to pat my hand. That's what family does. We help each other. We've actually been looking at some options, David added. There's a senior community about 30 minutes from here. Very nice place. You'd have your own small apartment, meals provided, activities, and the best part is it's income-based. With your Social Security, you'd probably qualify for a reduced rate. They'd toured senior homes. They'd researched income-based housing. They'd planned my entire future without asking me what I wanted. And once we sell the house, Sarah continued, warming to her subject, we can set up the finances properly. Michael and I have been talking, and we think it makes sense for us to help manage your money. Nothing official, just helping you budget, making sure the bills get paid on time. We know how confusing all that paperwork can be for someone your age. Someone my age. As if 70, one meant I'd suddenly lost the ability to add and subtract. I appreciate your concern. I said slowly, carefully, but I'm managing just fine. I don't need help with my finances, and I don't want to sell my house. The table went quiet. I could feel their frustration, their belief that I was being stubborn, difficult, unreasonable. Me, Jessica said, and her voice had an edge now, we're trying to help you. Why won't you let us? Because I don't need help, I replied. Clearly you do. Jessica's voice rose slightly, and a few heads turned at nearby tables. Look at you. You're wearing clothes from 10 years ago. You never go anywhere or do anything. You live in that little house like a hermit. We invite you to nice places like this, and you show up looking like what, Jessica? I asked quietly. She faltered, suddenly aware that the conversation had gone somewhere dangerous. I just mean, we want better for you. We want you to enjoy your retirement, to be comfortable. I am comfortable, but you could be more comfortable, Sarah insisted. If you just listen to us, let us help you make these decisions. I don't want your help, I said more firmly this time. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable. My grandchildren stared at their plates. Michael refilled his wine glass. David cleared his throat, and then Jessica laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, more disbelief than humor. You're being ridiculous, she said flatly. We're your family. We're trying to look out for you, and you're being stubborn and prideful. It's actually kind of sad. Something inside me cracked at that word. Sad. She thought I was sad. They all did. The rest of the dinner was strained. The waiter brought out a small cake with candles for my birthday, and everyone sang half-heartedly. I blew out the candles and made a wish, though I wasn't sure what to wish for anymore. As we were leaving, Vincent, the restaurant's owner, happened to be near the door. I'd met him a few times over the years when I'd stopped by to check on the property. He was a kind man in his 50s, passionate about food and hospitality. Mrs. Morrison, he said warmly, how wonderful to see you. I hope everything was satisfactory this evening. It was lovely, Vincent, I replied, thank you. My family had already walked outside, but Jessica had turned back, had heard him call me by name. I saw her face register confusion. Why would the owner of this upscale restaurant know my mother-in-law by name? But she didn't ask. She just filed it away, another puzzle piece that didn't fit the picture she'd created of me. After my birthday dinner, something shifted in me. I started paying closer attention to the things my children said, the assumptions they made, and I started to see a pattern that chilled me. It wasn't just concern. It was condescension wrapped in concern. It was the slow, steady effort to diminish me, to transform me in their minds from a capable woman into a burden that needed managing. 2 weeks after my birthday, Michael called. Hey, Mom, listen, Jessica and I have been thinking. we'd like to take you to our financial advisor. Just to get a professional opinion on your situation, help you understand your options. I have my own financial advisor, Michael, I said. Have for 30 years. There was a pause. You do, who? Harold Chen at Westfield Financial Management. Another pause, longer this time. Mom, that's a pretty high end firm. Are you sure you have an advisor there? Or did you maybe just meet with someone once? The implication was clear. I was confused. I was misremembering. I was making things up. I'm sure, Michael. Harold manages my investment portfolio. Your investment portfolio. He said it like I'd claimed to have a pet unicorn. Mom, what investment portfolio? You and Dad lived pretty modestly. I didn't think there was much left after his medical bills and the funeral. I could have told him then. I could have explained everything, but something stopped me. I wanted to see where this would go, how far they would push. There's enough, I said simply. He didn't believe me. I could hear it in his voice when he changed the subject. That careful tone you use with someone who's losing touch with reality. A month later, Sarah showed up at my house unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon. She had a woman with her, late 30s, professional, looking, carrying a clipboard. Mom, this is Angela Hart. She does home safety assessments for seniors. I asked her to come take a look at the house, check for fall hazards, that sort of thing. They walked through my house without waiting for permission, this stranger making notes about my rugs. Tripping hazard. My bathtub needs safety rails. My stairs, very concerning for someone of your age. We typically recommend one of two options, Angela said at the end of her inspection. Either significant modifications to make the home safer, we're talking $8,000 to $12,000 in renovations, or transition to a single-level living situation designed for seniors. After she left, Sarah sat me down at my kitchen table. Mom, you can't afford those renovations. We both know that. And this house is getting too much for you anyway. You're here all alone, and what if you fell? What if something happened? We'd never forgive ourselves, Sarah, I said quietly. I'm fine. I'm healthy. I don't need. You're 71 years old. Sarah's voice rose. You're not fine. You're aging, whether you want to admit it or not. And we, Michael and I, we're the ones who'll have to deal with it when you can't live independently anymore. We're the ones who'll have to figure out care homes and medical bills and all of it. We're trying to plan ahead, and you're making it impossible. There it was, the truth beneath all the concern. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about what taking care of me would cost them, financially, emotionally, logistically. I'm sorry you see me as such a burden, I said softly. Sarah's face softened, and she reached for my hand. You're not a burden, Mom. We love you. That's why we're doing this. We just want you safe and taken care of. But I'd heard what she'd said before. We're the ones who'll have to deal with it. We're the ones who'll have to figure out care homes and medical bills. They were already spending money they thought I'd leave them. They were already planning my end, parceling out what they thought would be left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed in the house Robert and I had built our life in, and I made a decision. I would document everything, every conversation, every assumption, every condescending comment. I would watch and wait and see exactly who my children had become. And then, when the time was right, I would show them the truth. But what I didn't know then was just how much deeper the betrayal went. It was my granddaughter, Emma, who inadvertently revealed what was really going on. She was 22, in her senior year of college, and she still came to visit me regularly, just her, without her parents. We'd always been close, and she was the one member of the family who never treated me like I was made of glass. She came over one Saturday in May with coffee and bagels, and we sat in my backyard enjoying the spring morning. Grandma, she said after a while, her voice hesitant, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Are you really having money problems? I set down my coffee. What makes you ask that? Mom and Aunt Jessica were talking last week when I was home. They were in the kitchen, and I don't think they knew I could hear them. They were saying things about how worried they are, about how you're probably not going to have anything left for. She stopped, her cheeks flushing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. For what, Emma? What were they saying? She looked miserable. They were talking about inheritance, about how you've probably used up everything just living, and there might not be anything left when you know. And they were calculating what the house might sell for, and dividing it up, and arguing about whether it should be split evenly or whether Uncle Michael should get more because he's the oldest. I sat very still, absorbing this. They'd been discussing my death, planning the division of assets they assumed I had, assets that amounted to one small house and whatever pittance they imagined was in my bank account. Grandma, are you okay? Emma asked, worried. I'm fine, honey. Better than fine. I smiled at her. Can I tell you a secret? Over the next hour, I told Emma everything about the properties, the investments, the quiet fortune Robert and I had built, about the fact that I could buy every house on this street if I wanted to, about why I'd kept it quiet. Emma's eyes got wider and wider as I talked. So Mom and Uncle Michael have no idea. None whatsoever. But why? Why didn't you tell them? Because I wanted to see who they really were, I said. I wanted to know if they loved me or what they thought they'd get from me. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I think you have your answer, don't you? Yes, I did, planning phase. After Emma's revelation, I decided it was time to take action. Not revenge, I'm not a vengeful person, but I needed to protect myself, and I needed to teach my children a lesson they'd clearly never learned. I called Harold Chen, my financial advisor. Harold, I need to update my estate planning. Significantly, we met in his office the following week, and I explained the situation. Harold, who'd known me for 3 decades, listened without judgment. What do you want to do, me? He asked. I want to establish a trust, and I want to change my will. I'm not cutting my children out. They're still my children. But they need to understand that love isn't about money, and respect isn't optional. Over the next month, Harold and I worked with an estate attorney to restructure everything. The new trust would ensure that my grandchildren were taken care of, college funds, down payments for first homes, genuine help when they needed it. As for Michael and Sarah, they would receive something, but it would come with conditions, and they wouldn't receive anything until they could demonstrate they understood what they'd done wrong. But I also decided something else. Before any of this went into effect, before they found out the truth through legal documents after I was gone, I wanted them to know while I was still here to see their faces. I wanted one moment of perfect clarity, where all their assumptions shattered like glass. I called Vincent Russo at the Meridian. Vincent, I have an unusual request. I need to plan a family dinner at your restaurant, but I need it to happen in a very specific way. Vincent, who'd known me as his landlord and respected me as a business owner who'd always been fair with him, listened to my plan. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, then he laughed, a warm, delighted sound. Mrs. Morrison, it would be my absolute pleasure. When would you like to do this? We set the date for 3 weeks out, early July. That would give me time to make one more important change. I called my children and told them I wanted to take them all out to dinner, my treat to celebrate summer and family. They tried to argue, tried to insist they should pay, but I was firm. Please, I said. Let me do this, let me treat my family to a nice dinner. They agreed, probably exchanging concerned looks over the phone about where I thought I'd get the money for an expensive dinner. They probably imagined me dipping into savings I couldn't afford to spend, going into debt to prove I was still capable. Let them think that, let them worry, let them show up prepared to judge me one more time. In the meantime, I had work to do. I met with Harold 3 more times to finalize everything. I met with my attorney twice more to review the trust documents. Every I was dotted, every T crossed. I also made a decision about what to wear to the dinner. For 2 years, my children had judged my clothing. made assumptions about my financial state based on my comfortable, modest outfits. So for this dinner, I would give them exactly what they expected. I went to a thrift store, a nice one, but still a thrift store, and I bought an outfit that looked exactly like something a struggling elderly woman might wear. A floral blouse that was slightly faded, comfortable slacks that had seen better days, a cardigan with a small stain on the sleeve that I didn't bother to remove, sensible shoes that were worn at the heels. I looked at myself in the mirror and almost laughed. I looked like someone's poor elderly aunt. Someone to be pitied, someone to be managed, perfect. The week before the dinner, Jessica called me about this dinner. Are you sure you can afford the Meridian? It's really quite expensive. Maybe we should go somewhere more budget-friendly for your sake. I've already made the reservation, Jessica. Everything's arranged. But how are you planning to pay for? She stopped herself, probably realizing how rude the question sounded. I'm just concerned, that's all. I'll manage, I said simply. I could practically hear her thoughts. She's going into debt. She's being foolish. She's not thinking clearly. Good. The night before the dinner, Emma came over. She was the only one who knew what was going to happen, and she was almost giddy with anticipation. Grandma, are you sure about this? I mean, Mom and Uncle Michael are going to be so shocked. I'm sure, honey. And you're really going to wear that outfit. She gestured at the thrift store clothes I'd shown her. Every element matters, Emma. They need to see what they've been doing, how they've been treating me. Sometimes you have to make people really look at themselves. I wish I could see Dad's face, she said, referring to David, her father. He's been going along with all of Mom's plans about the house and everything. Your father's a good man who got caught up in something he didn't fully understand. I said, this will be good for him too. A reminder that assumptions are dangerous things. That night, I laid out my thrift store outfit and went to bed early. I slept better than I had in months. Tomorrow, everything would change. I woke up on July 10th feeling strangely calm. I'd expected to be nervous, but instead I felt clear, headed, purposeful. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even really about the money. It was about respect, about dignity, about showing my children that they'd forgotten the most basic lesson I tried to teach them, that a person's worth has nothing to do with their bank account or their clothes or their age. I spent the morning puttering around my house, this house they wanted so badly to sell. I walked through the rooms, remembering the living room where we'd had Christmas mornings, the kitchen where I'd taught Sarah to bake cookies, the backyard where Michael had learned to ride a bike, Robert running behind him, hands ready to catch him if he fell. This house held 4 years of memories, and they'd reduced it to a line item in their financial planning. At 4 o'clock, I began getting ready. I showered and did my hair simply. No salon visit, just washed and air, dried, put on minimal makeup, and then I dressed in my thrift store outfit, each piece chosen to look just slightly shabby, just worn enough to confirm every assumption they'd been making about me. I looked in the mirror and saw exactly what they'd been seeing, an elderly woman in worn clothes, someone who'd seen better days, someone who needed help whether she'd admit it or not. The only piece of my outfit that was real was a small locket. I wore a silver locket Robert had given me on our 25th anniversary. Inside were tiny pictures of Michael and Sarah as children, their faces bright with joy and innocence. The reservation was for 6 o'clock. I arrived exactly on time, parking my 15-year-old Toyota Camry in the Meridian's lot between a Mercedes and a Tesla. I'd had offers from dealerships to upgrade. With my income, I could buy any car I wanted, but I loved this car. Robert and I had picked it out together. It ran perfectly. Why replace something that worked? Of course, my children saw it as another sign of my poverty, more proof I needed their help. I walked into the restaurant's elegant lobby, and the hostess greeted me warmly. Good evening. Do you have a reservation? Yes, under Morrison, party of 11. She checked her book. Ah, yes, Mrs. Morrison. Your family hasn't arrived yet. Would you like to wait in the bar, or shall I show you to your table? I'll wait here, thank you. I sat in one of the lobby's comfortable chairs and watched through the window as, one by one, my family arrived. Michael and Jessica in his BMW, Sarah and David in their Lexus SUV. My grandchildren in their own cars, Emma in her used Honda, Tyler in the truck David had bought him, and my 2 younger grandchildren, Sophia and Jake, arriving with their parents. They gathered in the parking lot first, probably discussing me, wondering how I planned to pay for this, whether they should offer to split the bill to save me from embarrassment. Then they walked in together, a united front, and I saw them spot me. Jessica's eyes went immediately to my outfit, and I watched her expression shift through several emotions: surprise, pity, and something that looked uncomfortably like vindication. She leaned toward Sarah and whispered something. Sarah's eyes flickered to my clothes, and she pressed her lips together in a thin line. Michael came over and kissed my cheek. "Hi, Mom, you look comfortable, code for embarrassingly underdressed. Thank you, sweetheart. Shall we go to the table?" The hostess led us through the main dining room, a beautiful space with white tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, fresh flowers on every table. It was a Saturday evening, and the restaurant was full of rest people celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, achievements. And then there was our table, with me in my thrift store clothes at the head. I could feel my children's embarrassment radiating off them like heat. Jessica sat down and immediately draped her napkin across her lap with sharp, precise movements. Sarah pulled her chair in close, as if trying to make herself smaller, less noticeable. But my grandchildren, wonderful, honest young people. They just hugged me and sat down, chatting easily about their weeks. Our waiter approached, a young man named Marcus, who I'd met briefly when I'd come to plan this evening with Vincent. "Good evening," he said warmly. "Welcome to the Meridian. Can I start you off with something to drink?" We ordered drinks, wine for the adults, sodas, and water for the younger grandchildren. Marcus brought them promptly, along with fresh bread and olive oil. The menu this evening features several specials. Marcus began, but Jessica interrupted him. "We should probably look at the regular menu," she said quickly, glancing at me. "I'm sure the specials are quite pricey." "Actually," I said calmly, "I'd love to hear about the specials, Marcus." He smiled and described them. A Chilean sea bass for $1.62, a lamb dish for $1.58, a lobster preparation for $1.75. I watched Jessica and Sarah exchange meaningful looks. Michael cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe we should." "The sea bass sounds lovely," I said to Marcus. "I'll have that, please." The table went quiet. Tyler, bless him, just shrugged and ordered a steak. Emma ordered confidently, but I watched Michael and Jessica have a silent conversation with their eyes. Then Jessica did something I'll never forget. She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "Me," she said, her voice gentle, pitying. "Are you sure about the sea bass? It's quite expensive. Maybe the chicken would be better. I don't want you to worry about the cost of this dinner." "I'm not worried," I replied, "but you should be." Jessica's voice rose slightly, and people at nearby tables glanced over. She noticed and lowered her voice, but her intensity increased. "Me, we need to be realistic here. You're on a fixed income. This dinner is going to cost hundreds of dollars. I know you wanted to treat us, and that's sweet, but we can't let you put yourself in a difficult position financially." "Jessica's right, Mom," Sarah added. "We appreciate the gesture, really. But maybe we should just split the bill like we usually do. That way you're not overwhelmed." I looked at my 2 children and their spouses, at their concerned faces, their pitying expressions. They genuinely believed they were helping me. They'd told themselves this story so many times, poor struggling me, barely getting by, too proud to accept help, that they couldn't see anything else. "I can afford dinner," I said quietly. "Can you though?" Jessica again, her voice sharp now with frustration. "Me, you wear the same clothes all the time. You live in that little house that's falling apart. You drive a car that's probably older than my marriage. We're not blind. We can see you're struggling, and there's no shame in it. but you have to stop pretending everything's fine when it's not." The entire table was silent now. Even the grandchildren had stopped talking, sensing something significant was happening. "Actually," Sarah added, emboldened by Jessica's speech, "maybe this is a good time to talk about some things. David and I have been looking into loans, Mom. We could help you out, maybe consolidate some of your debts, help you get on better financial footing." Debts. They thought I had debts. I was about to respond when I saw Vincent Russo walking across the dining room toward our table. He was holding a leather-bound reservation book and wearing his chef's whites with an elegant black apron. He was right on time. "Good evening," Vincent said as he approached our table, his voice carrying that particular quality of authority that comes from years of running a successful establishment. "I hope everyone is enjoying their evening so far." "Yes, thank you," Michael said politely, probably hoping this interruption would end the awkward conversation we'd been having. Vincent smiled, then turned to me. "Mrs. Morrison, I wasn't aware you'd be dining with us this evening. Had I known the owner was coming, I would have prepared your usual table in the private room." The effect was instantaneous and electric. Every head at our table whipped around to stare at me. Jessica's mouth actually fell open. Sarah made a sound like someone had knocked the wind out of her. Michael's wine glass stopped halfway to his lips, frozen in midair. "The owner?" Jessica's voice came out as barely a whisper. Vincent, playing his part perfectly, looked confused. "Yes, Mrs. Morrison has owned this building for, what is it now, 33 years, 33 years this September." I confirmed, my voice calm. "Of course, we've been fortunate to be her tenants for 6 years now," Vincent continued. "Best landlord I've ever worked with, if I'm being honest. Always fair, always reasonable with the lease terms. When our roof needed replacement 2 years ago, she had it done within a week." He smiled at me warmly. "You've been a blessing to our business, Mrs. Morrison." The silence at our table was so profound I could hear the soft classical music playing through the restaurant speakers, could hear the clink of silverware from nearby tables, could hear the sommelier presenting a wine bottle to guests 2 tables over. You own this building." Sarah's voice cracked slightly on the word own. "This building, yes," I said, "among others." "Among others." Michael set his wine glass down carefully, as if afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. "What does that mean, Mom?" "It means your father and I were very good investors, Michael. We started buying commercial properties in the 80s. Small things at first. We'd save money from our jobs, find a property that was undervalued, buy it, lease it out. The income from each property would help us buy the next one." Vincent, sensing this was a private family moment about to unfold, smiled politely. "I'll leave you all to your dinner. Mrs. Morrison, as always, everything tonight is on the house." "It's the least I can do." He nodded respectfully and walked away. On the house. The dinner they'd been agonizing over me paying for was going to be free, because I owned the building and had a standing arrangement with the restaurant. "How many properties?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He worked in finance at the dealership, and I could see him doing mental calculations, trying to make the numbers work in his head. 7 commercial properties in total, I said. This restaurant building, 2 small strip malls, 3 office buildings, and a small warehouse complex. All paid off, all generating rental income. Emma was grinning. She already knew all this, and watching her family's reactions was clearly making her evening. Jessica's face had gone from pale to flushed. But you live in that little house, you drive an old car, you dress like." She gestured helplessly at my outfit, like someone who shops at thrift stores. I finished for her. "That's because I do shop at thrift stores, Jessica. I bought this entire outfit this afternoon for $23. And you know why? Because I wanted to see what you'd all do. I wanted to see how you'd treat me when you thought I had nothing." "Mom," Sarah's voice was shaking now, and I couldn't tell if it was from anger or shame or shock. "Are you saying you've been lying to us about your finances?" "I haven't lied once, Sarah, not once. Every time you've asked if I'm managing okay financially, I've said yes, because I am. Every time you've suggested I sell my house, I've said no, because I don't want to. You made assumptions. You decided I was poor and struggling based on my clothes and my car and my house. You never asked the right questions. You never listened to what I was actually saying. But the house, Michael said, and his voice sounded lost, younger than his 51 years. You've let it get so run down, have I? I interrupted. Michael, when was the last time you were actually in my house? I mean, really looked at it. The HVAC system Sarah was so worried about. I replaced it 3 years ago with a high-efficiency model. The roof replaced 5 years ago, guaranteed for 30 years. The plumbing, the electrical, the foundation, all maintained, all updated. What you call rundown is actually just not redecorated to modern tastes. The house is structurally sound and mechanically perfect. I just happen to like my old furniture and my family photographs more than I like trendy throw pillows and accent walls. Tyler let out a low whistle. Grandma, you're like a secret millionaire. I'm not a secret anything, honey. I'm exactly who I've always been. Your family just stopped seeing me. Jessica stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor loud enough to make near-by diners look over. This is insane. You let us believe you were struggling. You let us worry about you, plan for you, try to help you, help me. I cut her off, and for the first time, I let my voice rise slightly. You wanted to help me, Jessica. Is that why you brought that estate sale woman to my house without asking? Is that why you told me I couldn't eat regular Thanksgiving dinner because my old stomach might be too sensitive? Is that why you've spent 2 years treating me like I'm a confused child who can't be trusted to make her own decisions? Mom, that's not fair, Michael said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. Isn't it? I turned to him. Michael, you're my son. I raised you to stand up for people, to treat everyone with respect regardless of what they had or didn't have. And you've sat by for 2 years while your wife and your sister treated me like a burden. You suggested I see your financial advisor because you didn't believe I had one of my own. You doubted me, dismissed me, and then told yourself you were just concerned. I reached into my purse and pulled out several sheets of paper printouts I'd prepared. I handed one to Michael and one to Sarah. These are statements from my primary investment account, one of 3 accounts, by the way. So you understand the full picture. I watched Michael's eyes scan the page, saw them go wide when they reached the bottom line. Sarah actually gasped audibly, Is that really? Sarah couldn't finish the sentence, $7.2 million. I said calmly, That's just the investment portfolio. It doesn't include the value of the properties themselves, which are worth approximately another $12 million. And it doesn't include the life insurance policy your father left me, or my retirement accounts, or several other smaller holdings. David was staring at his wife's paper, and he looked like he might be sick. $20 million, he said quietly. You're worth almost $20 million. Give or take, depending on the market. I confirmed. Your father and I built it slowly, carefully, over 50 years. We lived modestly because we didn't need more than we had. We were happy. And after Robert passed, I maintained the same lifestyle because it suited me. I don't need a bigger house or a fancier car or expensive clothes. I need comfort and simplicity and people who love me for who I am. Marcus, our waiter, chose that moment to approach with our appetizers, and the poor young man clearly sensed the tension of the table. He placed the plates down quickly and retreated without his usual pleasant small talk. Nobody touched their food. I can't believe this, Jessica said, and now her voice held clear anger. You manipulated us. You played games with us. I watched you. I corrected. I observed how you treated someone you thought was beneath you financially. Someone you thought was poor and struggling, and a little bit confused, and you know what I learned. That you, Jessica, are incredibly cruel to people you perceive as less fortunate. That you, Sarah, can't see past dollar signs to the person in front of you. And that you, Michael, have lost the backbone I thought I raised you with. Michael flinched as if I'd slapped him. But I also learned, I continued, my voice softening slightly, that my grandchildren are wonderful people. Emma still came to visit me every week. Tyler called just to chat, never asked for anything. Sophia and Jake still wanted to hear my stories. They didn't care about my clothes or my car. They just wanted their grandmother. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. So here's what's going to happen, I said. I've revised my estate plan. Harold Chen and my attorney have drawn up a new trust. When I die, which hopefully won't be for many years, yet the majority of my estate will go into trust funds for my grandchildren. Education costs, first home down payments, help when they need it, managed by trustees, not by their parents. Sarah made a choking sound. You'll each receive something. I said to Michael and Sarah, I'm not cutting you out entirely. You're still my children and I still love you, but your inheritance comes with conditions. You'll need to complete a financial literacy and ethics course. You'll need to volunteer for 6 months at a senior center. And you'll need to write me a letter. A real letter, not an email, explaining what you've learned from all this. This is about punishment, then, Sarah said bitterly. You're punishing us. No, sweetheart, I'm teaching you. The same way I try to teach you when you were children that people's worth isn't measured in dollars, that dignity isn't determined by bank accounts, that kindness matters more than material wealth. I paused. Apparently, the lesson didn't take the first time, so we're trying again. Michael's head was in his hands. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And there it was, the first genuine apology of the evening. I know you are, Michael, but sorry isn't enough this time. You have to show me, all of you have to show me, that you understand what you did wrong, that you see me as a person, not as a problem to be solved or an asset to be managed. Jessica stood up again. I can't do this. I can't sit here and be lectured like a child. She grabbed her purse. Michael, I'm leaving. Michael looked between his wife and his mother, and I watched him struggle. I watched him decide, and my heart broke a little when he stood up. Mom, I need some time to process this, he said quietly. I'll call you later this week. They left, just walked out of the restaurant, Jessica's heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. Michael trailing behind her like a ghost. Sarah and David stayed, though Sarah looked like she wanted to run too. I don't know what to say, Sarah whispered. You don't have to say anything right now, I replied. Eat your dinner, think. We'll talk later, when emotions aren't so high. The rest of the meal was subdued but not hostile. My grandchildren, after the initial shock wore off, started asking questions. They wanted to know about how Robert and I had built our wealth, about the properties, about why I'd kept it quiet. I answered honestly, and gradually, the conversation became almost normal. It's been 3 months since that dinner. 3 months of difficult, painful, necessary conversations. Michael and Jessica are in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. Michael comes to visit me once a week now, alone. And we talk, really talk, maybe for the first time in years. He's working on that financial literacy course, not because he has to, but because he says he wants to understand why he made the assumptions he did. Jessica hasn't apologized yet. I don't know if she will, but she did send a brief email acknowledging that she may have overstepped and made some unfair judgments. It's not much, but it's a start. Sarah completed her volunteer hours at the senior center in 2 months instead of 6, and she called me crying one afternoon. Mom, I had no idea, she said, the way some families treat their elderly parents, the dismissiveness, the impatience. That's what I was doing to you, wasn't it? Yes, sweetheart, it was. She's been coming over every Sunday now. She helps me in the garden, and we talk about everything and nothing. She's remembering who I am beneath the elderly mother label she'd placed on me. The grandchildren think the whole thing is both hilarious and profound. Emma told me she wrote a paper about it for her sociology class about ageism and assumptions and how society treats the elderly. She got an A. As for me, I'm still living in my same house, driving my same car, wearing my comfortable clothes. but now when my family looks at me, they see me. Not a bank account with legs, not a burden to be managed, not a problem to be solved. They see me. They see the person I've always been. I learned something through all of this too. I learned that silence, while protective, can also be corrosive. I learned that testing the people you love sometimes means risking relationships. And I learned that dignity, real dignity, isn't about what you wear or where you live or how much money you have. It's about knowing your own worth, regardless of whether anyone else sees it. Robert used to say, "Character is what you do when you think nobody's watching." Well, my children's character was revealed when they thought they were watching a poor elderly woman who couldn't fight back. The good news is that character can change, people can learn. Michael and Sarah are learning. It's painful and slow, but they're learning. And me, I'm still here, still strong, still the same woman I was before that restaurant dinner and after it. I just don't have to pretend anymore. If you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if your family has stopped seeing you, if they've reduced you to a problem or a burden or a dollar sign, know this. Your worth isn't determined by anyone's perception of you. Your dignity is inherent, not granted by others' approval. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for the people you love is to show them the truth even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. I'm 72 years old now. I've lived through a lot. Joy and sorrow, triumph and loss, wealth and the wisdom that comes from knowing wealth isn't everything, and I'm still here, still learning, still growing. My story doesn't end with that restaurant dinner. That was just a chapter, maybe not even the most important one. The story continues every day, in every conversation with my children as we rebuild what was broken, in every hug from my grandchildren, in every morning I wake up in my beloved house and remember Robert and the life we built together. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it resonated with something in your own life, your own experiences. If it did, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Share your story. Tell me about the moments when you had to stand up for your own dignity, or the times when you learned to see past your own assumptions. Remember, every story has a lesson, and yours might be just beginning. Don't wait until it's too late to see the people you love for who they really are. And don't wait until it's too late to show them who you are. This is me, Morrison, reminding you that respect isn't about age or money. It's about seeing the humanity in every person, including yourself. And maybe, just maybe, it's okay to surprise people sometimes, especially when they've forgotten to look. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments. Have you had to set boundaries with family? Have you had to choose yourself when someone you loved was taking advantage? You're not alone in this. So many of us have walked this road. Remember, every story has a lesson. And yours might be just beginning. But whatever chapter you're in, know this: you are valuable, you are worthy, and you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect.